Okay, so get this. Fusion power.
Oh,
Not just the theory, not just like the distant promise,
right.
but actual real-world fusion power might be closer than we think. And that's what we're diving into today.
You know what's got me particularly interested in this one is the sheer range of sources you've gathered for this.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got that physics subreddit, you know, how they get uh, buzzing with all that insider speculation.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got that contrasting with, like, the excitement in the industry news,
Yeah.
right? And then you bring in the World Economic Forum weighing in with a dose of reality.
Right.
And of course, we can't forget the deep dives from Real Engineering and Undecided,
Yeah.
rounding out our 360-degree view.
Exactly. We've got whispers from the labs, hype from the startups, and then that global perspective all in one place.
Yeah,
Now, you've probably heard of fusion power right now.
right.
It's been the dream for decades. Clean, limitless energy. But honestly, it's always felt a bit like science
It's
fiction.
had that reputation, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Always 20 years away.
Right.
But to grasp why this time feels different, we need to go back to basics for a sec.
Okay.
Specifically, the difference between fusion and the nuclear power we have today. Fission.
Right, because even though they both deal with atoms, they're doing complete opposite things.
Totally.
Like, it's the difference between smashing a Lego castle apart that's fission
Yeah,
and somehow getting those bricks to, like, click together to build something even bigger.
right.
Fusion, the real holy grail here.
That's a great way to put it. Fission, which powers current nuclear plants, splits atoms.
Right.
And that comes with its own set of issues, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
But fusion, it combines atoms, just like the sun.
Okay.
And that difference is key to why there's so much excitement around it.
So instead of splitting atoms, we're talking about fusing them together.
Yeah.
Like, taking tiny things and making them even tinier. My brain's already hurting.
Not quite.
Okay.
Think of it like this. Imagine you have two droplets of water, right?
Okay.
Separately, they're just droplets. But if you can get them to merge perfectly, they become a single larger drop.
Okay.
It's not about making them smaller. It's about, like, combining their potential.
Okay, that makes more sense. But why is that such a big deal? What's so special about fusing atoms?
Because the fuel source for fusion is practically limitless.
Okay.
We're talking about deuterium, which is found in seawater.
Right.
The oceans become giant fuel tanks.
Hold on, so we could power entire cities with just, like, seawater.
Uh-huh.
That's whoa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not just abundant energy, but fusion also means drastically reduced waste compared to fission, and it's inherently safer. This isn't just about turning on the lights. It's about climate change, energy independence. Even things like desalination for freshwater become possible on a massive scale.
Okay, I'm starting to see why people are calling this a game changer.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that always 20 years away thing, because there's a lot of skepticism woven throughout these sources, especially from that physics subreddit.
Oh, yeah.
They seem very skeptical.
Understandable. It's understandable.
Yeah.
Fusion has been the dream for so long that people are wary of getting their hopes up.
Right.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Those decades of research
Yeah.
weren't wasted.
Okay.
Think of it like building a skyscraper.
Mm-hmm.
We've spent decades laying the foundation, understanding the complexities of plasma physics, material science, the sheer engineering nightmare of recreating the sun's power in a controlled way.
So we're not starting from scratch.
Yeah.
We're building on decades of, let's call it, intense learning experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And part of those learning experiences involved trying different approaches.
Right?
You mentioned tokamaks and stellarators earlier.
Yeah.
Those were some of the early contenders.
Yeah, those names sound like they're straight out of a science fiction movie. What are they, in a nutshell?
They're both incredibly complex machines.
Oh.
Essentially different ways to build a magnetic bottle to contain the incredibly hot electrically charged gas called plasma that's needed for fusion.
Okay.
Imagine trying to hold lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
Literally, that's the level of difficulty we're talking about.
Wow.
Mm.
So two different designs for the same incredibly powerful engine.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing both came with their own set of challenges.
Of course.
Did either of them actually work?
They showed promise.
Yeah.
But achieving sustained fusion is more than just building a container.
Right.
It's about maintaining the right conditions.
Right.
And that's where things get really tricky.
Okay.
That said, while these government-funded projects like ITER, which uses a tokamak design, were chugging along,
Yeah.
something interesting happened.
What's that?
A new wave of innovation came, not from massive research facilities,
Okay.
but from an unexpected corner,
Oh.
private companies.
Oh, this is where the fusion race really sheets up, right?
No, no,
Startups,
no.
venture capitalists, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly.
Now we're talking.
Precisely. Suddenly, we're not just talking about scientific milestones,
Right.
but about commercial viability,
Oh,
speed, and competition.
I like where this is going.
Names like Commonwealth Fusion Systems,
Mm-hmm.
CFS,
TFS, yeah.
Helion Energy, General Fusion, First Light Fusion,
Okay.
they're all vying for the lead, each with their own unique approach to cracking the fusion code.
Okay, so we've got this new generation of fusion companies, each with their own unique approach, right? It's like the Wild West out there.
Yeah.
But instead of saloons and showdowns, we've got superheated plasma and magnetic fields.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's start with Helion Energy because they
Yes.
seem to be generating a lot of buzz.
I see them everywhere, yeah.
Their whole direct energy conversion thing,
Yeah.
it sounds incredibly efficient, but also kind of hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's both simple and incredibly complex at the same time, right?
Right.
So you see traditional power plants, even fusion ones, rely on steam turbines to generate electricity.
Right.
Multi-step process, and with each step, you lose some energy.
Right. It's like making photocopies of photocopies.
Exactly.
The quality degrades with each generation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Helion's direct energy conversion aims to bypass all that.
Okay.
Instead of using steam, they're capturing the energy released from the fusion reaction directly as electricity.
Ooh.
Directly.
No more middleman, just pure energy output. What's the catch?
Right.
Because I have a feeling there's got to be a catch.
Of course, there's always a catch.
Yeah.
The challenge lies in developing the technology to capture and convert that energy efficiently. We're talking about incredibly fast, powerful pulses of energy here, and controlling them is no small feat.
Right. So they're basically reinventing the way we harness energy from the ground up.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's ambitious. What about General Fusion? Their approach with the whole spinning chamber of molten metal?
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like something out of Terminator movie?
It's definitely one of the more visually striking approaches, that's for sure.
Right.
General Fusion's method involves a giant sphere
Right.
filled with molten lead and lithium,
Okay.
spinning at incredibly high speeds.
Okay.
This creates a vortex in the center, and that's where they inject the fuel for fusion.
So it's like a giant high-tech blender, but instead of making smoothies, it's making fusion.
You could say that.
Okay. I like it.
Now, surrounding this sphere are pistons.
Okay.
And when these pistons fire, they compress the molten metal, which in turn crushes the fuel at the center, creating the extreme temperatures and pressures needed for fusion.
It's like a diesel engine.
Kinda, yeah.
But instead of igniting fuel with a spark plug, they're using synchronized pistons to, like, squeeze the atoms together.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. I do remember from the Real Engineering deep dive on this, this method also helps protect the reactor walls from the intense heat and radiation of the fusion reaction.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's both powerful and practical.
Absolutely. And that focus on practicality is something we see with a lot of these private companies.
Right.
They're not just interested in proving fusion is possible. They want to make it commercially viable, something that can actually power our homes and cities.
And that brings us to First Light Fusion. Now, their approach, this is where things get really interesting.
It's out.
High-speed projectile. Are we talking about, like, a railgun here?
Almost.
Because that's what it sounds like to me.
You're not far off.
Yeah.
First Light Fusion is using a system that's similar to a railgun to launch a projectile at incredibly high speeds.
Okay.
This projectile then slams into a target containing the fusion fuel.
Okay, wait a minute. So they're literally shooting their way to fusion. Someone, get Michael Bay on the line because this sounds like an action movie waiting to happen.
It does have a certain cinematic flair, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But beneath the wow factor
Yeah.
is some incredibly clever physics.
Okay.
The impact of that projectile creates a shockwave so intense that it triggers fusion within the target.
So they're using brute force, but in a very precise, controlled way.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay. Okay, I can dig it. But with all this talk of superheated metal, high-speed projectiles, and literally recreating the power of the sun, I have to ask, is this stuff safe?
That's always the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
And the answer is both simple and complex.
Okay.
Fusion, by its very nature, is inherently safer than fission.
Okay.
Unlike fission, which can lead to runaway chain reactions,
Right.
a fusion reaction is incredibly difficult to maintain.
Okay.
If something goes wrong, the reaction simply stops.
Okay.
There's no meltdown risk.
So it's like a campfire.
Yeah,
If you don't keep adding fuel and tending to it, it just fizzles out.
that's a great way to put it.
Okay.
However,
Yeah.
We're still talking about immense energies and complex engineering.
Right.
These companies are working with incredibly powerful forces, and ensuring the safety and stability of these systems is paramount.
Of course.
They're not cutting corners when it comes to safety protocols and redundant systems.
That's good to hear. But let's talk about those engineering challenges for a second, because even with all the money and brain power being thrown at this, achieving sustained, controlled fusion is still a monumental task.
Oh, for sure. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Each of these companies is pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Take Helian's direct energy conversion again.
Okay.
It requires incredibly fast, efficient electronics, the likes of which we've never seen before.
Right.
They're having to invent entirely new technologies just to make their vision a reality.
Talk about a challenge. And what about the other companies? Are they facing similar hurdles?
Each company has its own set, right?
Right.
General Fusion, for example.
Yeah.
They need to perfect the synchronization of those massive pistons,
Right.
ensuring they compress the plasma evenly and efficiently.
Right.
And First Light Fusion, they're constantly refining the design of their projectile and target, right? To achieve the perfect shock wave for ignition. It's a constant process of iteration and innovation.
It sounds like a lot of trial and error pushing the limits of what's possible. We haven't talked about ITER in a while.
Right.
How does this massive multinational project fit into all of this?
Right.
It's like the elephant in the room. This giant tokamak slowly being built in France.
It's an interesting contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have these like agile startups moving quickly, taking risks, and then you have ITER, this massive multi-decade project.
Right.
Both are valid approaches,
Yeah.
but they highlight the shifting landscape of fusion research.
It's like the hare and the tortoise, but with the future of energy hanging in the balance.
There you go.
With all this focus on the technology, I
Yeah.
think it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So let's bring it back down to earth for a moment.
Okay.
For our listener who's hearing all of this, why should they care? What's the so what of fusion power?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the answer is bigger than just cleaner energy, right?
Okay.
Fusion has the potential to reshape our world in profound ways.
Okay.
Imagine a future where electricity is abundant
Mm-hmm.
and cheap,
Okay.
where energy scarcity is a distant memory. What would that world look like?
I'm picturing electric bills shrinking down to the size of postage stamps.
I'd settle for that. But seriously, imagine the possibilities. Decarbonized electricity, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels,
Right.
increased energy security,
Mm.
potentially changing the entire geopolitical landscape.
That's something that really stood out in the World Economic Forum reports, that like fusion could level the playing field
Right.
and give all countries access to a clean, safe energy source.
Totally.
It's almost utopian in a way.
It is.
Yeah.
But beyond geopolitics, think about the impact on human potential.
Okay.
New industries, new technologies, even solving the freshwater crisis through large-scale desalination powered by fusion.
It's like we're talking about unlocking a whole new level of civilization powered by like a tiny star in a bottle.
Right.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but the key takeaway is this. The future of energy is being written right now.
Yeah.
These companies, these scientists, they're pushing the boundaries, and the momentum is undeniable.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into fusion, I'm left with a sense of, I don't know, cautious optimism.
Yeah.
It's clear we're not quite there yet,
Yeah,
but things are moving faster than ever.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And for our listeners who are like as captivated by this as we are,
Yeah.
here's a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
One of the key challenges for fusion is achieving what's called a self-sustaining reaction.
Okay.
One that produces more energy than it consumes.
Right.
Now, imagine if a company like Helion, with its direct energy conversion, cracked that code.
Yeah.
What would that mean? Not just for the future of energy,
Right.
but for the future of humanity.
That's a question worth chewing on. Thanks for joining us on this electrifying deep dive.
Yeah, this is fun.
We'll be keeping a close eye on this race to the future, and you should too.